To see someone's true character, pay attention to just two things. Realness is silent. We like to think we know people. A friendly smile, a firm handshake, a kind word. But what if what we see is only a performance? What if character isn't shown in what people say, but in what they do when no one is watching? In this video, we'll explore the hidden layers of human nature through a psychological lens. From how people treat those who can't offer anything in return, to the subtle signs they reveal through silent actions, you'll learn how to observe what truly matters. This isn't about judgment. It's about awareness. Because the closer you look, the more you'll realize the truth of a person isn't loud. It's quiet, consistent, and deeply revealing. Stay until the end and you might discover something not just about others, but about yourself. Why it's hard to see someone's true character. We live in a world where appearances speak louder than intentions. People smile, speak gently, dress well, and play their roles to perfection. Yet behind these polished facades often lies something far more complex. True character is not always visible on the surface. It hides in moments when no one is watching and choices made when nothing is at stake. We are taught to trust first impressions. But what if those impressions are just masks? What if kindness is used to manipulate and confidence hides deep insecurity? The challenge is that we desperately want to believe what we see. We want to think that the person in front of us is exactly who they appear to be. It makes us feel safe. But safety built on illusion eventually collapses. Some people are experts at adapting, mirroring, and pleasing. They become whoever they need to be to gain approval. These patterns are not always malicious. Sometimes they are survival strategies born from fear of rejection or a deep sense of emptiness. But the result is the same: we misread who someone really is. This misunderstanding does not only affect our relationships with others, it can leave us questioning ourselves. Why didn't we see it earlier? Why did we feel something was wrong but chose to ignore it? This is where healing begins. Not in blaming ourselves, but in learning to observe more deeply. The path to clarity is not paved with judgment, but with awareness. To see clearly, we must learn to look beyond performance and into presence. We must learn to recognize what is real, even when it is subtle, because the truth of a person is never loud. It is quiet but constant. How they treat those who offer nothing in return. If you truly want to understand someone's character, observe how they treat people who hold no power. Not their boss, not someone they admire, but those who cannot benefit them in any way. A waiter who brings the wrong order, a janitor passing by, a stranger asking for directions. In these ordinary moments when there is no reward for kindness, the mask often slips. It is easy to be polite to those we need, much harder when there is nothing to gain. That is when authenticity is revealed. Genuine kindness does not select its audience. It flows naturally whether someone is important or not. People who are truly compassionate act with respect even when no one is watching. They don't raise their voices to prove superiority. They don't ignore the presence of others just because they seem insignificant. On the contrary, they acknowledge each person's dignity, even in passing. These are not grand gestures, but quiet signals that speak volumes. They tell us about someone's emotional depth, their level of empathy, and their sense of inner stability. On the other hand, people who display rudeness or arrogance toward those perceived as beneath them often reveal their own wounds. The need to dominate, to belittle, to feel above others stems from deep insecurity. It is not confidence. It is fear disguised as strength. When someone constantly disrespects people with no power, it is often because they feel powerless themselves. That pattern matters. It is not just bad manners. It is a reflection of who they are at their core. Pay attention to how someone speaks to those who serve them. Watch how they react when something small goes wrong. Do they blame, belittle, or lash out? Or do they respond with patience and humanity? These moments are not trivial. They are windows into the truth. And through those windows, we can see what words often hide. Silent kindness reveals a person's true nature. Kindness shown in silence carries a weight that words cannot match. It appears in moments that no one records, in gestures that are never acknowledged. Holding the door open for someone with tired eyes. Helping a stranger without expecting gratitude. These acts are not done for recognition. They emerge from a place within that is steady and true. A person who is genuinely kind does not need an audience. Their goodness is not conditional. It is who they are even when no one is looking. Psychologists explain that behaviors we perform without reward are closest to our real identity. When there is nothing to gain, our actions speak the loudest. That is why silent kindness is so powerful. It is not performance. It is presence. It reflects emotional maturity and an inner life rooted in empathy. People like this do not need to prove their worth. They do not need to announce their values. You feel them in the warmth of their presence, in how they make others feel safe, respected, and seen. This type of character is not built overnight. Often it comes from having known pain. People who have suffered without losing their compassion understand the fragility of life. They choose kindness not because it is easy, but because they know how much it matters. These are the people who make others feel human again. In a world that often rewards coldness and control, they offer gentleness. They remind us that strength does not need to be loud. That real depth comes with softness, not sharpness. To recognize this, we must slow down. Watch how someone acts when they are not being watched. Do they treat a child with patience? Do they notice someone's discomfort and adjust their tone? These are signs of a soul that has matured through empathy. And when you meet such a person, you will know, not because they tell you, but because their silent kindness touches something true within you. Observing the small overlooked actions. Character is not revealed in grand speeches or dramatic gestures. It shows itself quietly in the rhythm of daily life. How someone greets a receptionist, how they behave when the elevator door closes, whether they offer their seat to someone older without hesitation. These moments may seem insignificant, but they speak with quiet truth. The people who treat strangers with respect, who offer kindness without being asked, are often the ones who live with the deepest awareness. It is tempting to focus only on big moments to judge someone's nature. But the truth is, anyone can perform when they know they are being watched. What matters more is how someone behaves when nothing seems important. Do they throw trash on the ground because no one is looking? Do they stay calm when things don't go their way? These actions are windows into the real self, unfiltered by pressure or reward. We cannot see someone's soul in one bold act, but we can sense it in how they live the little things. Observing others in these unnoticed situations does not mean judging them. It means learning to listen with our eyes. It means paying attention not only to what people say, but how they act when their words are silent. True character is consistent. It does not switch depending on the audience. A person who is kind to their boss but rude to a cleaner is not kind. They are selective, and selectiveness in respect is not a virtue. It is a mask that cracks over time. To truly know someone, watch them when they think no one is watching. Watch how they treat the exhausted, the ignored, the invisible. It is in those moments that their values rise to the surface. If they can be gentle when no one rewards them, if they can choose grace over ego, they are not pretending. They are living from something real. Keeping promises, a sign of inner integrity. A promise may seem like just words, but it is more than that. It is a thread of trust woven between two people. When someone makes a promise, they are not just offering their time or effort. They are offering a piece of their reliability, their values, and their respect for the other person. That is why keeping promises is never a small matter. It reveals not only how much a person values others, but also how much they respect their own word. Some promises are loud in public. Others are quiet, whispered in private, or even made silently in the heart. But whether spoken or unspoken, every promise carries weight. When someone consistently follows through, even when it is inconvenient or difficult, it shows a rare kind of strength. They are saying through their actions, I am someone you can trust. I do what I say not because it is easy, but because it matters. This kind of consistency builds a foundation of integrity that no performance can replace. Breaking a promise can feel small at the time, especially if the consequences are hidden. But over time, it leaves a trail. People begin to feel unsure. Doubt replaces connection. And the person who breaks promises not only damages relationships, but also weakens their own self-respect. Trust is not a gift. It is earned through action. And when someone takes their words seriously, you can feel it. Their presence is solid. Their character feels grounded. We often think of strength as something visible, but strength of character is mostly invisible. It is shown in the quiet decision to follow through, in choosing not to let circumstances decide their behavior. To keep a promise is not only to honor others, it is to honor the self, and that is the beginning of a life built on truth. Honoring promises in hard times, the real test of character. Anyone can keep a promise when everything goes smoothly. But when life becomes difficult, unpredictable, or heavy, the weight of that promise increases. It is in those moments that true character emerges. Will the person still show up when it's no longer easy? Will they follow through when no one would blame them for walking away? These are not just questions of behavior. They are questions of integrity, of values rooted deeper than convenience. The real test is not whether someone makes promises, but whether they hold on to them when the world shifts. It is easy to be reliable in perfect conditions. The challenge lies in staying committed when it hurts, when it costs something, when it means choosing discomfort over escape. This kind of loyalty to one's word is rare and it is powerful. It shows that someone is not moved by the winds of circumstance, but by something steady within. When someone chooses to keep their promise despite adversity, they demonstrate not just strength but alignment. Their actions are in harmony with their values. They are not acting out of fear or guilt, but out of a deep belief in what is right. They don't need recognition. Their reward is the quiet certainty that they did not abandon themselves or others when it mattered most. This level of integrity is not about perfection. Everyone falls short at times. What matters is how one responds when things get hard. Do they offer honest communication? Do they find ways to adjust without breaking the trust? Even when they must change a plan, they do it with care. They show that responsibility is not about being flawless, but about being real. When you meet someone who honors their word under pressure, you are seeing something rare. It is not about what they promised. It is about what they are willing to carry through. In that consistency and that quiet strength, real trust is born. When promises are just a mask for pretending, some people make promises not out of intention, but out of habit. They speak with confidence, nod with assurance, and offer commitments freely. But behind these words is often a different reality. Promises in their mouths become tools for pleasing others, for gaining approval, or for appearing responsible. There is no real plan to follow through, only the desire to be seen in a good light. Over time, this pattern turns promises into performances, not principles. This kind of behavior is not always easy to spot. It hides behind charm, enthusiasm, and a persuasive tone. It feels good in the moment. You want to believe them, but as time passes, their actions begin to fall short. Meetings are forgotten, deadlines are missed. Apologies are made, then repeated. What was once trust begins to fade, replaced by uncertainty. And the painful truth sets in. Some people make promises only to avoid discomfort, not to build connection. Underneath this behavior often lies a deeper issue: the fear of rejection, the need to be liked, the belief that saying yes is safer than saying no. These are not signs of cruelty, but of disconnection from self, from boundaries, from responsibility. They do not break promises out of malice, but from a lack of clarity and strength. Still, the impact remains. Broken promises weaken relationships and erode self-respect. True accountability requires more than charm. It requires honesty, even when it is uncomfortable. It means saying no when you cannot commit. It means acknowledging limits. People who overpromise and underdeliver may not be bad, but they are lost in a cycle of trying to please without grounding. To see this clearly is not to judge them, but to protect your own peace. And to ask yourself, am I surrounding myself with truth or with words that feel good but go nowhere? Are you breaking promises to yourself? We often focus on whether others keep their promises to us, but there is a deeper question we rarely ask. Are we keeping the promises we make to ourselves? These promises may not be spoken aloud. They live in the quiet corners of our minds. I will rest more. I will stop tolerating disrespect. I will begin again. At the moment we make them, they feel powerful, like turning points. But what happens after? Do we follow through, or do we slowly abandon ourselves without noticing? When you break a promise to yourself, something inside you shifts. Trust in others fades slowly, but trust in yourself that can vanish in an instant. You begin to question your own words, your ability to commit, your sense of direction. Every time you say you will do something, and don't you teach yourself that your word means little. And over time, this weakens more than motivation. It eats away at self-worth. Keeping a promise to yourself, no matter how small, is an act of self-respect. It says I am worth showing up for. It creates a pattern of belief. I said I would, and I did. That cycle builds confidence from the inside. It is not about perfection. It is about honesty, about learning when to commit and when to let go. It is okay to change your mind, but not to abandon yourself. To live with integrity, start with your own reflection. What promises have you quietly broken? Which ones still deserve your attention? Begin again, not with pressure, but with care. You do not need to prove anything to anyone. You only need to rebuild the relationship with yourself, one small kept promise at a time. Watching the small details to understand a person's heart. We often search for truth in big moments, expecting character all to reveal itself through grand decisions or dramatic change. But the soul does not shout. It whispers in the smallest details. The way someone reacts when interrupted. The tone they use with someone who can do nothing for them. Whether they return the shopping cart or leave it behind. These actions are so ordinary they are easy to miss. Yet they offer a glimpse into the true rhythm of someone's inner life. Small behaviors are rarely rehearsed. People prepare for job interviews, speeches, and first impressions. But how they behave when they are tired, when no one is watching, when the world is not asking for performance, that is where their truth lives. In those quiet details, character is not dressed up. It is honest, raw, and often unfiltered. This is why observation matters. Not to judge, but to understand, to protect yourself, to know who you are inviting into your inner world. You do not need to be suspicious of everyone, but you do need to pay attention. Repeated actions form a pattern, and patterns form people. Watch how someone handles conflict, how they apologize, how they respond to kindness. Over time, these patterns speak louder than words. When we learn to notice the small things, we become wiser in who we trust. We stop falling for appearances and begin connecting with what is real. And that awareness does not just help us see others more clearly. It brings us closer to ourselves. Because in noticing what feels true in others, we begin to awaken what is true in us. Hurt by being disregarded and the power of kindness. There is a quiet kind of pain that comes from being overlooked, not yelled at, not insulted, just ignored, treated as if you do not matter. It may happen at work, in family, or among friends. People look past you, talk over you, or act like your presence is optional. This kind of hurt is subtle, but it cuts deep because it attacks the core of our human need, to be seen, to be valued, to be real in the eyes of others. When someone constantly feels disregarded, they begin to shrink, not physically, but emotionally. They stop speaking up. They question their worth. They replay moments wondering what they did wrong. The silence becomes louder than any argument. And the damage is not just momentary. It shapes how they show up in the world, how they love, how they trust, how they believe in themselves. But there is something powerful enough to interrupt that damage. Kindness, not the loud performative kind, but the simple grounded kind. The kind that looks someone in the eye and says, I see you. The kind that remembers a name, that listens without trying to fix, that shows up without needing praise. This kind of kindness is not just polite, it is medicine. Being kind to someone who has felt invisible, can begin to restore what was broken. It tells them that they are not lost, that their presence makes a difference. And sometimes that one small moment of kindness becomes the turning point in a silent battle someone has been fighting alone. In a world full of noise, kindness whispers something different. You matter, you belong, and you are not alone. Living by your values to rediscover life's meaning. Life often feels overwhelming, not because we lack time, but because we live disconnected from what truly matters to us. We chase goals that impress others, say yes to things that exhaust us, and stay in places that drain our spirit. Over time, we begin to feel empty, not because we have done too little, but because we have done too much of what is not aligned with who we are. Meaning fades when our actions no longer reflect our values. To live a meaningful life, we must return to what is essential, not what looks good from the outside, but what feels right inside. What do you care about when no one is watching? What would you still choose to do even if there were no applause? These answers are the compass that point you back to purpose. They remind you that meaning is not found in noise, but in alignment. Living by your values is not always easy. It may require saying no when others expect yes. It may lead you away from the crowd, but there is a quiet strength in choosing what feels true over what feels popular. Every time you act from your core, you rebuild the foundation of your life. You stop drifting and begin to anchor. You stop performing and begin to live. Rediscovering meaning is not a dramatic journey. It is a quiet return, a remembering, a reconnection. And sometimes it begins with a single choice to live more honestly, not for the world, but for yourself. Because when you live from your truth, you do not just find meaning, you become it. Awakening through how others live around us. Sometimes the greatest lessons do not come from books or teachings, but from quietly observing the people around us, noticing who listens without interrupting, who chooses kindness over ego, who apologizes without excuses. These simple behaviors, when witnessed, can spark something inside us. They remind us of the person we want to become. And in that gentle reminder, a part of us begins to awaken. We do not live in isolation. Every day we are shaped by the energy we absorb. If we surround ourselves with those who live with intention, who embody respect and awareness, their presence can inspire change. Not because they preach, but because their lives speak. Watching someone live with authenticity makes us question our own habits, our own silence, our own compromises. It is not about comparison. It is about remembering what we value. This kind of awakening does not arrive like lightning. It arrives like dawn, quiet, steady, undeniable. It begins when we see someone act with quiet dignity in a loud world. When we watch someone make choices from love, not fear, their way of living becomes a mirror. And in that mirror, we begin to see more clearly who we are and who we are not. If you feel distant from yourself, look around. Who are you learning from? Who are you becoming near? The company we keep is not just background noise. It is a compass, and sometimes one person's truth is enough to remind you of your own. Pay attention. There are people around you living in a way that might just call you back to yourself. Character is not built in moments of ease, but revealed in moments of truth. Through how we treat others, how we keep our word, and how we choose to live, we silently shape the legacy of who we are. May we choose awareness over judgment, kindness over image, and integrity over comfort. In doing so, we not only see others more clearly, we finally begin to see ourselves.